Hey everybody, welcome. If you're looking for a way to get mental health advice or advice on any life subject completely for free from people that you respect and admire, I think you're going to find this little lesson interesting. If you guys are new to our community, my name's Hicks, founder of mentalhealthcoaching.com and the SSS conditioning method. And we put out this material every week because we want you to have the mental health that you deserve. It's really possible for anybody to have really great mental health regardless of their background. All you got to do is master some certain skills and steps, and we want you to have the mental health you deserve. Life is too short to suffer through it. So small little concept for you guys today. It's kind of a fun one. It's a little bit different from what I typically teach. Typically I'm teaching things that are a little bit more structured and, sort of more rigorous frameworks and things of that nature. But I just thought that this would be useful because I've recently revisited this strategy myself and found it to be pretty interesting, and it's easy to remember. And so I picked this up several years ago from a book that you guys maybe have heard of. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so Napoleon Hill was an interesting guy. He was one of the very first people that, at least I'm aware of, who, he kind of started the whole personal development industry in a way. I suppose it was maybe started a little bit before him, but he was like the first guy that I can ever recall who literally found people that he really respected and admired, and he would study them and he would interview them and he would try to decode what it was that made people successful. He was one of the first people that was really interested in the idea of trying to figure out what the common thread was that enabled people to be successful. And so he studied people like Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, who was essentially like, the Elon Musk of the day back then. And he also looked at Thomas Edison and, some other people. And so he had all these different people that he got to know over the years, who some of them he met and had a personal relationship with, some he just admired from afar and got to understand their thought process and things of that nature. And so he came up with this little mental process. You guys have probably heard of the term mastermind before. Nowadays, like, everybody's got a mastermind. Join this mastermind program. It's kind of become this like bastardized term. But as far as I know, Napoleon Hill was the first guy who ever came up with this term mastermind. And so essentially the idea was, if you brought really, really smart people together, that they could come up with really cool, unique ideas, more so if they were together than they could collectively if they were on their own. And so he organized some actual, literal, physical masterminds of people that would get together. But what he also did was he did this simple little mental exercise that I want to teach you that would help him a lot. And so what he would do is he had his own little mental board of advisors, so to speak. And so, on that imaginary board of advisors were John D. Rockefeller, were Thomas Edison, were other, notable business people and philosophers and, things of that nature. And I'm sure he probably brought people onto that list of mental advisors and then had people be taken off and such over time. And so what he would do is, if he was dealing with a problem or a challenge or something of that nature, he would simply go into his mind, close his eyes, and imagine that he was presenting the case to the board of advisors and go around and ask for input and ask for feedback from whomever he'd like to get feedback from. And so it became a really powerful way for him to get advice essentially from these, famous and hard to reach people, completely accessible whenever he would want it for free. Now, at first glance, you might think, all right, well, this kind of seems silly, right? Because he's just doing it in his head. So how is it really like the genuine article, like quality advice from these people? But there are probably people that you get advice from, especially in this day and age where consuming content is like a daily regular occurrence. There are probably books you've read or TED Talks you've seen or content that you've watched of people who you want their feedback or respect, or hell, it might even be somebody you know at an intimate level, like maybe like a grandfather who passed in your life, but he always gave you really sage advice, or a distant friend who lives across the country who you don't get to speak with as often as you'd like to, right? It could be someone simple like that. It doesn't have to be a celebrity or like a well-known person per se. But the whole point is to make it so that you have the ability to get access to a new way of thinking so that you can create breakthroughs for yourself on demand whenever you might need it. Now, at first, this idea might seem a little strange to you. It might seem a little like wonky or whatever, but I want to really encourage you to give it a shot, because I've actually done this more times than I can count. And I think every single time I have done it, it is actually a very valuable experience. And I think the reason is that what I've learned studying people who have mental health challenges over the years and working with them and helping them learn how to create breakthroughs and get unstuck really quickly is we get caught up in what you could call a trance. So whenever we feel stuck, we're essentially caught up in a trance. A trance simply means that we are continuing to look in the same direction, or we're looking at something the same way, and that's why we feel stuck. Right? So a simple example would be if you're trying to enhance your career, and what you think is in your way is that your boss doesn't listen to you, respect you, or give you opportunities. You think that in the economy there's not as many options for utilizing your skill set as there used to be. Maybe you've heard recently the jobs report is down in the economy or something of that nature. And so every time you think about advancing your career, it seems like all you can think about are the obstacles in your way. And so you tell yourself a story that you are stuck. Well, it's not that you are actually stuck. It's that you keep focusing on the issue in the same particular way, and you're creating blind spots for yourself. So you're focused on the problems and the obstacles and the difficulties, but you're not noticing the opportunities and how you can use this to your advantage, and all of the different jobs that are available in the economy for you to choose from, and all of the people in your network that might be happy to help recommend you for a position, and so on and so on. And so what we have to do is to end the trance, or to transcend, right? So transcending is ending of the trance. It's a way to get yourself unstuck. And so when you are trying to solve a problem on your own, what tends to happen is we tend to spiral and spiral and spiral, where we keep thinking about it the same way over and over and over. And we think that that somehow is going to get us closer to a solution or a resolution, but it doesn't, because it's not you that's the problem, and it's not the problem that's the problem. It's the way of thinking that you're currently bringing to the situation. This is why coaching is such a valuable thing, why I obviously became a coach, why I love coaching, and then why I've also invested in coaches over the years, is because sometimes you just need a different person looking at it from a different angle to see what you're not seeing. One of my favorite quotes from a gentleman who has really great business advice. His name is Alex Hormozy, but he said, you need someone else to tell you that your breath stinks, even though your mouth is 1 inch away from your nose, right? So even though you're totally close to it, you're so close to the issue. Sometimes that's the problem. You're looking at it too closely. You need somebody who's got a different vantage point where they can spot what you can't spot. So by using this little mental mastermind strategy, I believe that psychologically it does a couple powerful things. First of all, what I think it does is it enables you to end the trance of how you're currently looking at the situation. Just by the nature of having to consider somebody else's point of view, you interrupt that current monologue that you might be experiencing inside of your own head. And so it enables you to kind of shut yourself up and be receptive to new input. Number two, of course, sometimes we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So sometimes when I do this little mental advisor process, the people on my board of advisors will tell me stuff I've heard them say many times, right? I've heard them say it in videos or through seminars or whatever, dozens or hundreds of times. But sometimes all you need is to be reminded of the concept so that way you actually utilize it, right? The late, great Jim Rohn said, repetition is the mother of skill. So that can be a very valuable thing. And then what I also think is really valuable about this little exercise is our brain is a powerhouse of storing memory, right? So it has got terabytes on terabytes of information. It has more information in it than we can readily access at any given time. So the metaphor that I use when I teach my clients this is, imagine there's a person in your brain who's in a lab coat, who's got a microscope, and around that man or woman or whatever has got, an infinite number of little slides that they can look at. And on those slides are, every little like business concept you've ever learned, or every memory from your childhood that you could recall at any given time, or anything you've ever read in a book that you still remember, or any quote that you've ever heard, right? You remember plenty. You have plenty stored in your long-term memory, I should say, that you are not accessing on a regular basis. So simply by consulting this person in your mind, right, of, well, what do you think? What do you say? It's a way to tap into unused mental resources that would otherwise just die on the vine, right? Now you're able to actually utilize that advice and put it into something actionable. So I think that can be a very useful thing. So you can just get general advice from people. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go to my board and I'll hold a vote, right, when I'm trying to make like a big decision. And depending on what subject of problem I'm trying to solve, I will ask for different advice from different members of the board. And so that can be a really fun little exercise for yourself. So here's what I recommend you do. Just go ahead and map out your initial board of advisors. Don't overthink it. Just get a little piece of paper. And honestly, I'd love to see in the comments who you would add to yours, because maybe you guys can inspire each other, and some of you might be able to give a good idea to somebody else, and the whole community can help each other out, which would be fantastic. So I'll share with you a couple ideas. So some people that are on my board from time to time, I'm trying to live a life where I am a more compassionate person, and I'm trying to make it so that for the remainder of my adulthood, I have a little bit more of a like global mission-oriented attitude, meaning that I really want to do whatever it is that I possibly can do to help humanity. And so I'm trying to have a little bit more of like a global-oriented focus. And so some people who've been on my board recently are people like MLK Jr., Gandhi, Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama, the Buddha, and then some other people from time to time more in like the personal development space. People like Tony Robbins. From time to time, Grant Cardone gets on there. He just causes problems a lot of the times, but just different authors and things of that nature. It changes from time to time. Brene Brown would be on there, things of that nature. Gary Vaynerchuk, okay, so different people. But anyway, let's see in the comments, who would you add to yours? I'd love to see what your thoughts are there. And try this little mental exercise out on whatever problem it is that you're dealing with where you feel like you need some advice, and see if it helps you. So as always, we're happy to support you and help you. Reach out at mentalhealthcoaching.com if you ever need more advanced help. And thanks for being a part of the community. See you guys in the next one. Bye.